black and I love it. I'm black, so black is the subject. I'm black and back and I'm loud. I'm black, so black and I'm proud. This for my men in black. Will Smith in pursuit of happiness. Malcolm X, all your problems.
Welcome to another episode of Apolitical, where we're having conversations on a higher plane. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Watson, with my co-host,
Myron Joseph Douglas.
And so we're here and we're bringing you all topics related to social political issues that impact our community from the perspective of two brothers who just want to be able to speak to the things that are important and relate to the people and not get too tied into the bipartisan politics or partisan politics rather, and just kind of speak from our hearts from what it is that the things that we care about. And Myron, I'm gonna kick it to you because, I just want to check in with you, brother, on a regular basis and just, let's talk like brothers that just want to catch up because we know that's all important. Before we get into the issues, what's going on with you, bro?
Man, I'm doing good. Lord blessing, just trying to get through the madness, right? We had a pandemic, we're going a health crisis, COVID-19.
Right?
we have 41 million people out of work.
It's crazy.
I'm blessed to still have my job and Lord's willing, we're good. And now you have racial tensions that taking place,
As if we weren't dealing with enough and as if that wasn't an issue before the pandemic, right?
Yeah. So it's like, it's definitely a sandwich of a problem, right? But my head is above ground, I'm breathing, bills being paid. So I can't complain, and in my personal health, spiritually, mentally, and physically is okay. So family's good. Everybody's good. What about you, man? How you doing, man?
Yo, man, I can't complain. Talked to the moms the other day, and moms is from Jamaica. And so of course I got to represent a little bit. And she's trying to fill a house. And just speaking with her was kind of reassuring because she was checking in with me the other day.
Yeah.
Making sure that I was in before the curfew, Okay. Not like I'm not a 43-year-old man with my own wife, own house, own bills, 3,000 miles away. Right. And mom is just trying to make sure that I'm in the house.
Hey, you know what? We have parents. We're always going to be their children. I don't care you're 10 to 60. They're always going to look at you and check on you. So
right.
It's one of those things that it's a parent's job, as my mom said, it's a job that you do to your day you die. Right. And it did some, right? So,
yeah.
All right.
So yeah, everything's good. Wife's good. I think I definitely consider all my blessings given what we're seeing happening. Like you mentioned, unemployment, and then of course the pandemic, and as many lives as we've lost, just within our own community, and there still not being any type of mass testing or anything like that, and kind of no direction, from our leadership.
Right.
So we really don't know where everything is going at this point. We can only pray for the best. And then at the same time, to add insult to injury, right? As if COVID wasn't killing enough of us. You throw police into the mix, and they're right back where they started if they ever stopped, right?
Right.
And this is something now that I think people are thinking about more carefully.
Yes.
And in terms of how they're analyzing the situation. There's not as much doubt as we used to experience with regards to the victims themselves. Are they really victims? And then they bring up, everybody's background history, whether or not the person paid child support, whether or not they had parking tickets, whether or not, they had detention in high school, that type of thing to mar that person's character. And now, we're looking at probably, I think, one of the key milestone events in terms of Black deaths at the hand of police with George Floyd. And I think there were a lot of things leading up to this moment that kind of made this the quintessential moment. And now the question is, where do we go from here? You know, and I think at that point, I'm gonna kick it to you, Myron, because I can go on for forever and a day, because you know how heavy this weighs on a lot of brothers like us, and just even our own mental state, because I definitely had a few moments.
Well, you know, George Floyd and even Deion Johnson, right, that took place locally.
Yeah.
It's very strange how this era or time of events took place over 4 to 5 days, right? You had, you know, Central Park issue with
Christian Cooper,
right? She, you know, called the police because her brother just wanted to make sure her dog was on a leash because he didn't want to get attacked, right?
And you know, he was in there, you know, doing his Audubon Society bird watching, you know, enjoying the peaceful and quiet that the park offers, you know,
right.
And then you have him, you know, asking. He just asked, "Hey, can you put the dog on the leash?" Makes sense to me, right? Because if I'm walking around, I don't know your dog. If anybody else is walking around with a child, they don't know your dog. Your dog doesn't know them. So if that dog responds in a negative way, but I think more so in this case, you know, he's trying to do what he's doing, and I'm sure some part of that is concern for his own safety, right? And for him to ask is not unreasonable, you know, and for her to take it to the extent where she's weaponizing the police, which is something, another concept that we're all too familiar with, that I think is the highlight of this event, right? And how people use the police against us, and then enter in, you know, what's happened with Ahmaud Arbery, and then of course George Floyd, and then of course you know, our brother here locally, Deion Johnson. You know, it's a lot, Myron. You know,
it is a lot. It's a lot, and I think a key phrase you said that we can focus on is weaponizing the police, right? I mean, in all those issues or situations that took place, the police were weaponized in some way, in some form. And when it was initiated as a weapon, the result was, oh, that's okay, we're just doing our job. Or he was a suspect. Or, you know, he seemed to be a danger to the community.
Right.
Which also plays to a platform of, oh, you know what, Johnny here, we didn't find him guilty.
Right.
Or, you know, Alan, he was just doing an upstanding job, and it was his civic duty as a citizen to make a citizen's arrest.
Right.
So the key phrase,
like in the case of Travis McMichael,
right,
and what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, right? And interestingly enough, with the McMichaels and the father of the two being a former law enforcement and not following up on his trainings, a very key point here, right?
Right.
In terms of having the education and the background and being equipped, right? Equipped beyond having a gun. A gun, I think, too many times is being used as the tool of focus, the tool of choice to make the deciding factor as to who's who will be the victim today, who will be, you know, at the other end of a menacing force that is empowered but yet supposed to be public safety officers, but empowered in a way where they become judge, jury, and executioner at first, before they utilize the tools from a mental capacity that they're supposed to have spent the time while they were on the during the police academy, right, preparing to deal with the public. There should be just a little bit more sophisticated approach prior to reaching for deadly force. And I think that's the aspect of it that we found far too many times when they deal with us, that they know that they can be callous and get away with it.
No,
and they can be reckless, and we can lose our lives, and
right.
The consequences are minimal.
I totally agree with you. And you see the people that's protesting right now across the country, right? Just found out today that all 50 states in the union are protesting. They're protesting going wrong all over the country. And let's just take it another step. There's protests going all over the world.
Right.
From London to Sydney, Australia. I mean, you can go on and on. So right now, what's on trial is human rights. Civil rights is more of an American thing, but human rights right now is on the table.
Right. From what I understand, the lawyers behind George Floyd have actually taken this, are looking to take this case to the UN.
Correct.
Which is very interesting because that was a similar approach that Malcolm X took in terms of bringing the US up on charges for crimes against humanity, which I don't think you'll run out of evidence with regards to where that's been taking place over the years. And you know, just to reiterate again, what we're talking about with George Floyd, you know, is it's one of those moments where here we are again. I can't breathe again. And you know, it's scary because, you know, not that long ago, you know, we saw a similar video with Eric Garner in New York. And now we're in Minnesota talking about the same thing. And it's not too far-fetched to consider the fact that these are just the events that have taken place where we caught it on video.
Let me tell you this. Technology has been the biggest advocate for African Americans' unrest when it comes to police. I've seen more engagement from the video, which is unfortunate that we had to see such tragic events. But that's when we get the conversation going. That's when we actually spark the interest. That's when we actually take it to the next level of conversation. But it shouldn't have to be a video. Let's say, for instance, I'm somewhere I don't have my phone with me, or the police officers or the cops don't have their body cams on.
Right.
You should just be able to hear my concern as a citizen, like, hey.
Funny you speak about body cam. I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment. For the Deion Johnson situation, no body cam, no dash cam, no name of the police officer, right?
Right.
And I mean, how can you get away with this as a professional organization? One that can determine life and death every stop that you make. And you're there without your homework. You're there without pen and paper. You're there about the quintessential tools that make your job what it is. But you definitely didn't forget your gun, did you? You remembered your gun. You didn't forget that. You forgot the body cam. You forgot the dash cam. So continue. I'm sorry.
No. It perfectly stated. And because we have those tools or those technologies, that justifies our cry. It justifies our complaint. So, you know, like Will Smith said, racism hasn't gone nowhere. It's just being filmed.
Right. Wow.
So,
poignant words. And he said that a while back.
That's
not recent.
Early 2000s, I believe, if I'm correct. And
those words are that's almost like Proverbs, whatever verse that you can continue after the last proverb is that. I mean, it's almost biblical in that sense, right? Because it's something that has remained true over the course of time, and we can't seem to get over it. And I think that's the part that hurts so much, because in as many ways as we're talking about having a space force, right? And we're talking about facial recognition and all these different technologies and using drones and using artificial intelligence to predict behaviors, we can't seem to have the sociological advancement that we're supposed to have. We're still stuck in the 60s sociologically.
Well, let's just be honest. There's two Americas at play right now. And I think everybody that's asking to have common sense and a soul, when will the real America step in? And I think everybody's been waiting for the real America. You know, we do all this talk about the Constitution, Bill of Rights. We do all this bragging over the world. We go to other countries.
USA.
Right. But that's a great story, but we need content to that story to make it real.
Right.
And that's what people are looking for, the real America to step up, the real America to stand in and say, hey, this is wrong. This is not right. We are the leader of the free world. We are the example for human rights. We are the example for other societies to follow. But
or I'm gonna challenge you a little bit on this, right?
Go ahead.
Or is this the real America? Because as you said earlier, you know, all of this stuff has been taking place, but only more recently have we been able to record it. So are we looking at more of a mirror's reflection at this point versus the word on page sounding so poetic, right? But yet at the same time, not having kept it real with who it is that we really are. And so that would indicate the reason why we haven't been able to resolve this issue since, right? And we're currently finding examples that expose who we really are to our core. And not until these events take place do we pause to think about, what are we doing?
You take a look at other countries, they don't have as many police shootings and killings that we have. So the challenging question is, what are we doing wrong? And how can we correct it? Because obviously there's signs that you compare us to other countries or other societies, we have a lot of challenges and issues with the police that is ongoing, that's not changed, which more systematically is stitched into the institution of policing.
Right.
How do we unstitch it?
You mean the former slave patrols?
Right.
That we just changed the name, right? But we didn't really change the philosophy as much as we think we did.
Right.
And I think from that standpoint, you know, there's credence to abolishing the police. Let's be honest, right? All things considered. And granted, from a public safety standpoint, perhaps what we're looking for is another form of public safety that's within that same gap, right? One that is more highly sophisticated. Before they go to a shooting range, right? They're taking more of a psychology class, a negotiators class, right? It shouldn't be somebody having to jump off, you know, a skyscraper for someone to negotiate whether or not they can live or should live. It should be every single instance of human interaction where a life is on the line that we're prepared to negotiate whether or not they live or die. Because this is the kind of stuff that could drive people crazy.
Yeah, it's
generationally.
Yeah, generationally. And it can drive a generation insane, because it's obviously you're doing the same thing over and over again with different, but not a different result. Right. And you know, it's one of those things that we have to take the conversation to a higher level.
We do.
To a higher plane. And that's what we got to make sure when we have these conversations, that we're constantly educating and making sure that we strip away the ignorance that's been taught to them, or taught to most people in general, right? Even African Americans and other people of color may not know their own history as well as they should know, because a lot of it we're going internally is that we don't know our history well enough, so we don't even value ourselves sometimes well enough to have these conversations that are needed, or even don't have the strength, as my grandmother said. You need to be knowledgeable so you have the strength to talk about talk about your history. And once you have that strength, you can emphasize the importance of why you should know me.
Right. Which is what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to create a space where we're able to tell those stories from our perspective, give our analysis. And I know we've spent some time really talking about, as we witness the loss of life at the hands of the police, as we witness the loss of life due to this pandemic, and then also kind of like the silent killer over here is the death of the Black business, right? And I know you've kind of put your ear to the streets, and you've spoken to a few people. One in particular is one of the well-renowned barbershops in the area, Lefties, and kind of talk about that a little bit, Myron, if you don't mind. Just kind of what you've kind of discussed and kind of what we've heard as a group from Lefties.
Yeah, talking with Dwayne Phillips, which is the owner of Lefties in Chandler, Arizona, which is a great barbershop. He's been in business now for a little bit over 10 years. Does very well. But when the coronavirus or COVID-19, to be technically termed correct, he took a hit. Once again, when you have a businesses that only have maybe one or two different services and one or two different products, and you eliminate those one or two services or even revenue streams, it can kill a small business overnight.
Right.
So I had a conversation with him about a little bit more in detail regarding, some of his challenges during that time when his shop was closed. How did he interact with his customers? How did his employees and his staff dealt with it, and how he was planning for the recovery? We have a small interview with one of his daughters, which she does a great job in interview. I think.
Right. That's the thing. So we're gonna kick it to this clip, and we're gonna catch you on the back end. And once again, be reminded that this is taking place during the pandemic, and we're gonna catch you on the back end. Remember, this is Apolitical, conversations on a higher plane.
Barber?
Why did you decide to open up your barbershop and become a barber?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, I decided to become a barber a long time ago. I was about 15 years old. My mother used to cut my hair. She wasn't doing a really good job. So after about 4 or 5 really bad haircuts, I decided to grab some clippers, get in the mirror, and started cutting hair myself. As time went on, I got really better. Other kids started noticing it, and they started asking me for to cut their hair. So as time went on, I got better at cutting their hair, and I got that to a crossroad where my senior year in high school, where I didn't know if I wanted to go into the military or if I actually wanted to become a barber or maybe even a chef. I love to cook, I love people, so being a chef was a big thing for me. Well, I ended up meeting a gentleman by the name of Anthony Gathers, who is still the current owner of AG's Barbershop. And Anthony, at that point, asked me to go check out cosmetology school with him and where he went. And that's pretty much the rest is history.
How has COVID-19 affected the barbershop?
Wow, that's a great question. I've been a barber for over 20 years. I've worked in the shop for 11 years. I've been on my own for almost 12 years. In all my time of being in this business, I've never experienced anything like this. So COVID-19 is affected my business traumatically. People are weary about going around each other. So of course, a barbershop is one of the places where people kind of hang out at, and now moving forward, we're not sure if things are going to still be able to conduct business that way. We will now have to have customers wait in their car for appointments only. We have to make sure we clean the chair extra more than we normally would. We have to, in between each haircut, wipe our hands down, hand sanitizer, wipe the barber chairs down, between each service. So COVID-19 has had a huge effect and impact on my business.
So how does this impact your relationship with your loyal clinics?
My loyal clients?
Yeah.
So it does definitely impact my relationship with my loyal clients, but I would say it impacts it in a good way. Now I see my loyal clients, they're calling me and we're doing one-on-one services where I kind of go and open up the shop just for them. They're tipping a little bit more because they appreciate my services even more. You know, it's you kind of see who sticks with you in these tough times. You know, and we understand that everybody's having struggles and issues and trials and tribulations, but where actually people are sticking together and they're finding ways to get their hair cut still, and then they're supporting my family. So I definitely appreciate that. And in these times, the times of the unknown is what we're dealing with right now. And you can't control what somebody else thinks. We can't control what somebody else assumes. What we can control is what we're doing, and that we're doing our part in keeping everybody safe, that we're keeping everybody happy, and that we're keeping everybody with a good service.